What's up, fellow YouTubers? I'm back again here with my 125 gallon. Doing a video today on basic maintenance that I do daily, weekly, and monthly. Everybody's got their own little twist on maintenance that they do. I agree with some of it, I disagree with some of it, just like some of you guys might disagree with me or agree with me. The first thing I do every day is I look at all the fish. If I notice any kind of weird behavior, spots, discoloration, any fin cramping or anything of that sort, I haven't had anything like that. But I always look at them every day, and I'm sure my wife would vouch that I probably stare at the tank more than anything else in the house. Ultimately, the first thing I do every morning is I change out this filter pad. And it's real easy. It's just one of those cut to fit. You just take it out, and I sit it just on the side, get any excess debris, and I'll just sit that there until I have time to throw it away. Right there. I would grab the new one, and all I do is slide it in there. You don't want to go too far, because then it's a pain in the butt to get out. But as you can tell, if you look, all of the air bubbles, none of them are really going under. The sponge is essential for the air bubbles to not get through. Without the sponge, I can't even use it because it just doesn't restrict the bubbles enough, and the bubbles fill up. So the sponge and everything's dialed in. Never have a problem now. That's the first thing that I ultimately do every morning at like 5 in the morning. The next thing is I check out the overflow box. I see how everything's going in it. Every once in a while, I'll catch a small snail stuck to the inside. Hasn't really been a problem. It's only happened twice, and I've had the overflow box 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks now. So we'll see how that goes. Ultimately, in the morning, after I check that out, I come down here and I make sure my water levels are where I want them. I make sure the pump that runs up and over to the UV sterilizer, I always make sure that that's running. And I have the return put right here. And there we're probably at about, I don't know, maybe 100 gallons an hour. The pump itself is a 300 gallon an hour, but with the head and going up the UV light probably brings it down to about 100 gallons an hour, which is about where you want to eliminate any kind of parasites. A lot of people, they think you run more flow, it's working better. But that's not true with the UV light. The longer that the water is exposed to the light, the more parasites and more effective the UV light. This is an 18 watt UV light, so it's a rather powerful UV light. There's a lot more power out there, but this is all I needed. This is probably a little overkill for 125 gallons, which is what you want. Always go bigger when it comes to filtration. If you got a 120 gallon tank, get a filter that can handle a 200 gallon or a 300 gallon tank. But you don't want to run a lot of flow through there for parasites. If you get ick, UV lights are very, very effective. The only downfall is they only affect what goes through it. That is why this pump stays on 24/7. It is constantly circulating the light, the water through the UV light. I don't want to run the return through the UV light because the return is pushing 1,200 gallons an hour. That would be rather pointless to run through a UV light. It might affect if you have an algae bloom. You could probably run it that high, but I don't recommend it. If you run your water flow through your UV light slower, it will be a ton more effective. Other than that, I make sure that the filter sock doesn't need to be changed. It doesn't have to be changed. It's relatively clean. It doesn't look to be too dirty, so that'll be changed tomorrow morning since I didn't change it this morning. As far as the morning maintenance goes, that's about it. It's very, very little maintenance involved on this. As far as what I do weekly, that's a little different. Still not a lot. This is a real low maintenance fish tank. You know, even for being as large as it is, it's a lot easier to control water parameters and other stuff with a bigger volume of water. I evaporate probably right around 2 gallons a day is what I have to add, 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons a day through the sump, and that's it. So there's still evaporation, but the water volume is so large it doesn't really affect the water parameters. As far as the weekly maintenance goes, the big one is every Sunday I do a 50% water change. This last weekend I only removed about 1/3 of the water, so it'd be about this level here. But normally I do a 50% water change, and it keeps my water real fresh for the fish. They also say water changes can induce mating in particular fish. I have a whole guap of platies, as you can see. I started out with 5, and they breed like crazy. And being a live bear, they bear live young, which normally in a community tank just means extra snacks and extra little food for the other fish. But there are a few that have made it, and then they keep having babies. I don't mind it. I like it. My daughter loves it. She's got tons of fish to look at. A lot of people say when they do their water changes that they like to vacuum the substrate. I have a planted tank. It's not dirt. I used Carib Sea planted nutrient substrate, and all of my swords and my wisteria doing really good. This bunch is just taking off. Roots are exploding. I'm going to have to go in and prune it and start propagating it. That's another thing that I do about once a week, is I inspect all the leaves on the plants, and if there's any trimming needed, like there's one right there, it's a little discolored with a rip in it, that I'll prune off. I don't like vacuuming the substrate, and because that's added nutrients for all of my live plants. My filter down here has more than enough biological filtration to handle the bioload that's produced by all of these platies and these neon tetras. I also have a big Plecostomus in here. You can kind of see him a little bit. He likes to hide a lot. They don't like bright light. But he, along with the snails, control all my algae. As you can tell, there is no algae on that white resin log. On the rocks, very little bit of algae. It's thank you, snails. The only problem with the snails, they reproduce worse than the fish. And there's one sure way that I know how to get rid of a bunch of snails, and that's to bring some clown loaches into the system. Clown loaches love snails. They will dig in the sand, they will take them off the wall, they will go through the plants and get your snails, and they eat them. It's funny because you can actually, when they're done, you can actually see crumbs of leftover shell from where they were chomping on them. So in the next couple of weeks I'm going to be getting a couple of those to help control these snails. But for now, they really do a good job maintaining the glass and all of the stones in there. As far as what else I do on my weekly maintenance, that's pretty much it. And as far as my monthly maintenance goes, depending on how much detritus there is located on the bottom, I may do a light vacuuming, but I never vacuum the substrate up. I never get all the debris out of that substrate because my plants need nutrients. And fish poop and fish waste is excellent nutrients. Like I said earlier though, the only reason I can get away with that is because my bioload, or the bioload for my filter, is way above what I need. A lot of people say, well, that's just it just develops nitrates. Well, yeah, it does. But it also gets rid of the more harmful chemicals for your fish. And the nitrates, they get taken out of the system during every water change. And since I do a 50% water change every week, my nitrates are non-existent, along with nitrite and ammonia. The other thing I do, which is important, every month I do it, is I clean the glass under the light. With bubbles and just being around water, it gets dirty. It gets water spots. And out here in Marseilles, Illinois, we have really hard water. And what that does is that creates a white calcium film that on anything that's not submerged, it'll show itself. With live plants, I don't want to restrict any of the light, so I have to make sure I keep that clean every month. And that's religious. All of these things are religious. I don't skip on them. I own a landscape business. Right now I'm going through winter, so I'm just kind of twiddling my thumbs till spring. But things get hectic, you know. You get busy. I got 2 children, you know. Sometimes you can get lax on the maintenance, but if you want a successful, happy tank, you've got to be strict. They love fresh water. They love clean environments. Most of the fish you find at your local pet stores or online, the water conditions that they are used to is ridiculously clean compared to nature. You know, you don't want any kind of chemicals that aren't supposed to be in there to harm your fish. Probably the biggest mistake that the most common person makes is they wash their hands with soap before they put their hands in the tank. Now that's a big no-no because, yeah, your hands are clean, but there is a film that you cannot see and it is almost impossible to get off, and when you put it into the water, it can kill your fish. The most common is Dawn dish soap. You never use Dawn dish soap to clean anything in your fish tank. You know, it's a sterile environment. You know, if you have unknown things going in there, you know, who's to say that? I mean, your tank may get cloudy. Your tank may lose some fish. You know, so you always it's very sanitary. You got to be super clean with it. You know, it doesn't take much. Even the oils on your skin. That's why when I wash my hands before I do anything with the tank, strictly warm, almost hot water. and no soap. You scrub them good. I have to scrub all the way up to my shoulder just about, because, well, this tank's about 22 inches tall, and that's quite a reach for me, so the water goes up. But I must be doing something right, because this water's perfect. For a while there last week, I was running it without a filter sock right here, and to be honest, it was still real clear. You know, the filter sock does help polish it up. I like the fact that absolutely no debris, none whatsoever. And if you look, tiny, just a couple little particles, because my Picassomus done stirred it up. But all of that gets eliminated through there. Any extra oxygen bubbles that have been created go through the system, and every time there's an opening, the water comes in through here, and every time that water comes up to the system, it's releasing bubbles. I have this cut to fit filter pad here, eliminating any chance of micro bubbles. As you can tell, they stop about right here. The exit to the chamber is way down here, so none of those bubbles are reaching into my return. When you got air bubbles in your return, those end up in your tank, in your display tank. And as you can see, we'll do the best we can, that water is perfectly clear. This pad here has been in there for about a month. Now, since I know for a fact that all of this water that comes into this filter gets all of those deposits removed at that filter sock, this pad here has two purposes, and that is it. The first purpose is to remove or allow any air bubbles to escape before they get to the return chamber, and also this is added biological filter. I know that there is no debris in there getting it clogged up, so the only thing that's getting caught in that is good bacteria. The more bacteria you have in here, the better your bioload can be. You can't have too much biofiltration. You may not be able to essentially use all of it if your bioload isn't that high, but in certain situations, if there's an oops, say overfeeding, or your son or daughter throws some food in the tank, the extra bioload is going to help counter that as that breaks down. I don't know if you can really see it too well, but there's 6 gallons of bio balls, and in the middle of those bio balls I have an air stone, and that's important because they need oxygen. Good bacteria needs plenty of oxygen, and oxygen in the air is a lot greater than the oxygen molecules in water. Water doesn't hold as much oxygen, so you got to add it. By adding an air stone, I supply more than enough oxygen to create the good bacteria and keep it multiplying. They multiply about every 7 to 20 minutes. So every 7 minutes, new bacteria is growing, and more of my bioload is getting eliminated. If only I could get this tank to provide its own food, it would be a complete ecosystem. But as you can tell, there's a lot of work in it. And when you do your maintenance, I mean, it's crucial. You gotta stick to it. You know, you take baths every day religiously. You put gas in your car religiously. You go to work religiously. This should be added to those set of responsibilities if you want a healthy, clean tank. That's basically all I do. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Changing out a couple filter pads and a filter sock, we're talking 5 minutes every morning, and then 20 minutes to do a water change. What's that in how many minutes you live every day? Just to keep your fish healthy. That's all it takes. Well, I hope that this maintenance video helps you fellow YouTubers have a beautiful, lively, happy tank. So, till the next episode, happy tanks!